All right, Krishna. Good morning. Let me just get things set up here. Uh, so I'll be, so we'll start with Jayaraj Madhava. We'll be doing Srimad Bhagavatam class now. So, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavalabha Giri Valadhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Chaya Stota Stata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Chaya Stota Stata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Shikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Sri Hadmridanga Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vikasa Swami Iti Namini. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Patrali Nirvishesha Shunyavali Praschita Deshatadini. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Good morning. We are reading and studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, Verse 20. We have devotees here in the temple and also online. So we'll go through it. Okay. This is quite a tongue-twisting Sanskrit verse. So Should all get to practice nicely here. Chakram chadikshiv avitam dasheshu svatejo. Manvantareshu manuvam shadharo bibharti. Dushteshu rajashu damam vidadhat svakirtim. Satye triprishta ushatim pratyam charitrai chat. Chakram chadikshiv avitam dasheshu svatejo. Manvantareshu manuvam shadharo bibharti. Dushteshu rajashu damam vyadadhat svakritim. Satye tri prishta ushatim prayams charitrai. Chakram chadikshiv avitam dasheshu svatejo. Manvantareshu manuvam sadharo bibharti. Dushteshu rajashu damam vyadadhat svakirtim. Satye triprishta ushatim pratyams charitrai.
Chakram chadiksva vihatam dasashu svatejo.
Chakram Chadiksha Adhyatam Dashareshu Swatejo
Manmantareshu manumansadaro bibhalti.
Manandareshu Manvansadaro Vivarti
Dusheshu raja sudamam yadadhat svakirtim.
Teshu Rajeshu Dhamam Jadatsmanartim
Satye trikushta usatim prathayam charitrehe.
Satye Krishna
Chakram chadikshva vitaham dasashu tejo. Chakram chadikshva vitaham dasashu tejo. Manvantareshu manumam sadharo vibharti. Manvantareshu manumam sadharo vibharti. Teshu rajashu damam vyadadhat svakirte. Dushteshu rajeshu damam yadadhat svakirtim. Satyeti prishtasatim prathayam charitre. Satyeti prishtasatim prathayam charitre.
Chakram chadishto abhyatam dasharusha tejo.
Chakram chadishta aviyatam dasru vatejo.
Manmantareshu manubhamsho karo bihati.
Manvantareshu manavansaro vivarti.
Dushteshu rajau dhamam bhayadahat sakirtim.
Dusheshu raja sudamam yadadhat svakirtim.
Satte Tripishta Shatim Pratayam Charitra.
Satye Trikusha Usatim Pratayam Charitrihe.
Anyone online would like to? Let me see if we can hear you.
Chakram chatikshva avihatam dashasusvatejo manvantareshu manuvam sadharo bhivarti dushteshu rajasu tamam yatadat svakirtim satye tripristha ushatim pratyam charitrai.
Anyone else?
Chakram Sadiksva Avihatam Dasasu Swatejo Manvantareshu Manuvanshadharo Vibharti Dusteshu Rajashu Damam Vyadhadat Swakirtim Satye Triprishta Usatim Prathamyam Charitre.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Chakram Chadiksha Abhihatam Tadasu Swatejo Manvantareshu Manuvansadharo Vibharti Dushte Surajasu Damam Vayadadat Swakirtim Satye Triprishta Ushati Pratyas Charitrihi. Hare Krishna.
Okay, word for word. Chakram,
Chakram.
the Sudarshan wheel of the Lord.
Sudarshan wheel of the Lord.
Cha,
Cha.
as well as.
As well as
Dikshu,
Dikshu.
in all directions.
in all directions.
Avihatam,
Avihatam,
without being deterred.
without being deterred.
Dashasu,
Dasasu.
10 sides.
Insolence.
Svateja,
Swateja,
personal strength.
Personal strength.
Manvantareshu,
Manvantareshu.
in different incarnations of Manu.
in different kinds of man.
Manu Vangsha Dhara,
Manu Vangsha Dhara,
as the descendants of the Manu dynasty.
The descendant of the mountains.
Bibharti,
Viparti.
rules over.
rules
Dushteshu,
Dushteshu,
unto the miscreants.
unto the
Unto the
miscreants.
miscreant.
Rajasu,
Rajas.
upon the kings of that type.
From the kings of that type.
Damam,
Dhamma.
subjection.
Subjection.
Vyadadhat,
Via the type.
performed.
Patma.
Svakirtim,
Swakirti.
personal glories.
Personal glory.
Satye,
Satya,
in the Satya Loka planet.
in the
The
Satya
Yoga
Loka
planet.
planet.
Tri Rishte,
Three
Krishna.
the 3 planetary systems.
Planetary system.
Ushating,
The thing.
glorious.
Glories.
Prahayang,
Pratayam.
established.
Established.
Charitrai,
Very great.
characteristics.
Characteristic.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Jai. As the incarnation of Manu, the Lord became the descendant of the Manu dynasty and ruled over the miscreant kingly order, subduing them by his powerful wheel weapon. Undeterred in all circumstances, his rule was characterized by his glorious fame, which spread over the 3 lokas and above them to the planetary system of Satyalok, the topmost in this universe. We have already discussed the incarnations of Manu in the first canto. In one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus, changing one after another. In that way, there are 420 Manus in a month of Brahma, and 5,040 Manus in 1 year of Brahma. Brahma lives for 100 years according to his calculations. And as such, there are 504,000 Manus in the jurisdiction of one Brahma. There are innumerable Brahmas, and all of them live only during one breathing period of Mahavishnu. So we can just imagine how the incarnations of the Supreme Lord work all over the material worlds, which comprehend only 1/4 of the total energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Manvantara incarnation chastises all the miscreant rulers of different planets with as much power as that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who punishes the miscreants with his wheel weapon. The Manvantara incarnations disseminate the transcendental glories of the Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Anobishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutare Svayam Rupa Kathamayam Tadati Sva Padantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Before beginning speaking, I would like to ask for blessings and permissions from all the assembled Vaishnavas here and throughout the universe, so I may speak something in line with the Parampara and Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, and good morning again to everyone here. I'll read the translation one more time. As the incarnation of Manu, the Lord became the descendant of the Manu dynasty and ruled over the miscreant kingly order, subduing them by his powerful wheel weapon. Undeterred in all circumstances, his rule was characterized by his glorious fame, which spread all over the 3 lokas, and above them to the planetary systems of Satyalok, the topmost in the universe. So here we're still in this chapter and section of Brahma explaining the different avatars or expansions of Krishna. And it is described that there are 6 categories of avatars. And in this verse, we're hearing about one of the categories, the Manvantara avatars. Now, here's a little pop quiz. Let's see, we'll do a little pop quiz. The 6 categories of avatars. Anyone have any thoughts on what the other ones might be?
Guna avatar?
Yes, Guna avatar. So we have Manvantara avatars, Guna avatars, Purusha avatar. Yep, that's 3.
Yeah.
Shakti Avesha avatar. Yes.
Leela avatar?
Leela avatar. Very good. And one more. Anyone else can think of it? Guna. So we have Purusha avatars, Leela avatars, Guna avatars, Manvantara avatars, Shakti Avesha avatars, and Purusha avatars. So these are the different expansions and how the Lord comes and breaks out his energies in different ways. It's just a little bit. I'll just go over quickly what those are. So we have the Purusha avatars, are the original avatars that in this material world, that as it's being created, we have Karanodayakshai Vishnu, Garbhodayakshai Vishnu, and Kshirodayakshai Vishnu. These are the original Purusha avatars. In the material creation, Then the Leela avatars, all the different avatars of Krishna as he comes into different Leelas, such as like Prithu, Nrsimha, Vamana, Parshuram. Most of these avatars are here in pictures in the temple. Then there's the Guna avatars. Guna avatars, we're actually hearing about them. So we have the Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. So in one sense, like Brahma that is speaking here is an avatar of the Lord. So then these Manvantara avatars, which is what we're hearing about, which I'm trying to really understand and wrap my head around all of this, trying to prepare for this and understand what these Manvantara avatars are. So I did my best. So they're, the fathers of mankind, the Manus. And so it's like a post. And specifically the one that's being described here, there was, so let me just go back to this here. Going back to the verse, because the one that is actually being described in this particular verse is, I believe, Swayambhuva Manu. So these different Manus have different names throughout the different cycles of yugas. And we get a little glimpse into the length of time and how long this is. So we've got these Manvantara avatars. So 1,000 Chatur yugas. A Chatur yuga is all 4 yugas put together. So it's divided into 14 periods of the rule of Manus. And those are known as Manvantaras. The incarnations during these Manvantaras, they have different names like Sarvabhauma, so many different names, right? And then the next one, just so that we can understand, because this is very important actually for us, then we have the Yuga avatars. So each Yuga has its own avatar. And we'll get into this, what's really, probably of all the avatars, they all have equal importance, but one that really is very important to us, that is really impacting us right now in our life in this particular Yuga, which this Yuga is Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, is the Yuga avatar of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which has also been described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll talk more about that as we kind of get towards the end. But so we have these different Yuga avatars that come. And so it's described in the Bhagavad Gita why avatars come. There's really simple 2 main reasons. It's actually in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And we speak about it frequently. Those of us who are studying the Bhagavad Gita, which are all of us, why is it that, does anyone know the actual verse? Yeah. Very good. So Bhagavad Gita 4:8. In order to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of religion, I invent myself millennium after millennium. So in the Vedic approach, everything is so deeply categorized, from time frames from everything it comes exactly on schedule and on time, just the way that it is supposed to. And what we can understand is that Krishna comes in these different forms and avatars, and especially what's described in this verse, to punish the miscreants. Miscreants, this duskrinin, how does it put it? Duskrito, duskritino, these miscreants. So Krishna's coming, and with what? His Sudarshan chakra, to annihilate, as it's described in this verse, the miscreant kings. It seems to be throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a tendency for kings to kind of become a burden to the earth. like we can understand from when Krishna came 5,000 years ago. This is specifically what Bhumi was asking, saying there's so many kings and their weight is so heavy on my body. And these miscreant kings, they're causing so much suffering and pain. So something has to happen. So Krishna came to protect and annihilate and to reestablish the principles of religion. And so that's what we are studying now, is what Krishna has brought to us to reestablish the principles of religion, because throughout the different cycles and yugas, Krishna is explaining this knowledge. And the current Manu, the name of the current Manu is
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to
Vishwasma. Vishwasma.
Vivishwan.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's Ishvaku. And so like we discussed this actually in my last class. So how there was the fish incarnation of Krishna, and then it ultimately came from, Ikshvaku, who is the sun god. So then he explained this knowledge to Vivishvan. And like that, this knowledge, which is the Bhagavad Gita, which is the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, comes down from the highest consciousness, from teacher to disciple. And Krishna is coming in so many different forms and so many different types of avatars to express this knowledge to us and to give this knowledge to us, and also to stomp down the miscreants who are constantly trying to destroy the religious principles, because those religious principles are directly in opposition to their desires, to the general rajasic and tamasic desires that we have in this material world. In this material world, we're seeking after some kind of pleasure or happiness with our senses and our body. And because of the true position of our soul and ourselves being covered over, we're accepting that lower level of happiness as the ultimate end all be all of life. But what happens in that mode of consciousness is that we actually suffer. But we think that we're being happy. We think that we're getting pleasure. But just in the same way, and Prabhupada gave this example so many times, in the same way that a pig is happy, human beings, whatever body we are in, we are accepting that level of enjoyment as the highest level of enjoyment. Just like an insect or so many times it's a worm in stool or a pig, they're accepting this enjoyment as the highest level. In the same way, when we're on the bodily platform, even in a human body, that acceptance of the pleasure of what we're getting in the human body is actually just a small fraction, like a drop in the ocean, of what is possible through the transcendental pleasure that comes through getting in touch with Krishna, who is the source of all pleasure. And so Krishna is coming in these different avatars, so many different ways, to help us understand in so many different ways. And what is very fortunate for us, on one sense, that we're in this age of Kali, and there's so many cycles. These cycles we're hearing of thousands of Chatur yugas. I mean, imagine that, like how long that is. We think our life is so relevant and important. And of course, when we're living it, it's like every minute that goes by, a second can seem like it lasts for a year, a minute. But like in reality, it's like it's all perspective, because it's going by so quickly. But in one sense, since the soul is eternal, like we are existing eternally. So it's like we're getting these bodies one after another. And somehow or other, we've come into this position to have this human body, and this human body specifically is able to experience and understand the higher knowledge. And given that we're in this age of Kali, this age of Kali is described as an ocean of faults. Like imagine being in the ocean with like no land anywhere in sight. And the waves are crashing really, and it's like, and there's no shelter. There's nowhere, there's nothing to save you. You're just out there. So that's this Kali Yuga. But in this Kali Yuga, there's at the same time as it being an ocean of fault, there's this one thing that makes it great. And that is that we are able to actually get to the highest goal with the simplest process. And it's very rare that this opportunity comes, and this opportunity was given to us. Well, you say given to us, but it's been propagated and established through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Well, he was actually, so the Srimad Bhagavatam is giving the descriptions of so many things that are happening now and in the future. And the verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam that actually establishes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Guna avatar. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead who constantly sings the names of Krishna. This is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishna. Sango Pangashtra Harshadam Yagnai Sankirtan Prayir. Yanyanti Hisu Medasaha. What is Sumedasaha? And this is the last piece. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. And those who have intelligence, not just like Medasaha in this verse is intelligence, but Sumedasaha is like a lot of intelligence. So in this age of Kali, there's millions, billions, and trillions of living entities, but those with the ability, some intelligence and the mercy from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what are they doing to attain this spiritual realization, the congregational chanting, constantly singing the names of Krishna? And so that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to actually provide for us. And as it's described in this verse that we're studying today, that in this incarnation, this Manvantara incarnation, Krishna came with his disc, his Sudarshan chakra, which there's so many pastimes where we hear the Sudarshan chakra and Krishna is, chopping people's heads off with it. And like we even hear in the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with the Jagai Madhai pastime, where they had attacked Lord Nityananda, and these two lowly Brahmins came that were drunkards, sinful. They attacked Nityananda, who was trying to preach to them. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he got so mad, and he went to cut them down with his Sudarshan chakra. But the mercy of Nityananda, he said, no, wait. This is not, don't do this. These two can be saved by you. And like this, so Krishna has this tendency to want to like annihilate those who are hurting the devotees. But what we understand from this is that actually he is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. So in the same sense, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has so many associates. We hear from the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the pastimes of Chaitanya, like there's the Panchatattva, so there's his associates. So Krishna is coming as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with his associates. And these associates are like his weapons. And so like the Maha Mantra is like the Sudarshan chakra in this age of Kali. it's like cutting down the mentalities. Because really, it's like the demoniac mentality in the age of Kali that is dragging us down. The mode of ignorance and the mode of passion. So for us to overcome that is the big challenge that we face. And just like there in different pastimes, there's kings or big demons like Hiranyakashipu or so many different demons that we hear about who are pushing down the devotees. In this age of Kali that we're experiencing right now, what's pushing us down is the contamination that we've acquired in this age of Kali. Hare Krishna. And by performing this congregational chanting through the guna avatar of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the parampara, in the disciplic succession of teacher to student coming down from Krishna, we are able to gain the protection of Krishna in this age of Kali, which is a very fortunate position for us so that we can actually come out of the difficulties that we are inevitably facing in this material world. So we have, everything is happening on schedule. And at the end of this Kali Yuga, it's already been described how it's going to go, and it doesn't look good for the rest of the Kali Yuga. In fact, what's understood is that this movement, the ISKCON movement and Srila Prabhupada's movement that he brought to the West, it's like ushering in or a part of what's called like a 10,000 year golden period within Kali Yuga that will allow for the last ditch effort of those who have the mercy and who can come to connection with it. There can be a light within the darkness. And even Prabhupada said that like society itself, if enough people started to chant Hare Krishna in society, that society could shift. And inside of that, Prabhupada also talked a lot because there's always so much categorization. There's time categorization, categorization of how one should live their life, when one should do this, when one should do that. So we have what's understood to be the Varnashram system, which in Kali Yuga is very difficult to try to establish or to understand, but this is a system that was given by Krishna. It's a say it's transcendental. It's a system that was given by Krishna, the Varnas and the Ashrams. And to some degree, we can kind of try to establish our lives around these different types of Varnas and Ashrams. The Varnas are, so you've got the Varnas. Anyone know what the 4 Varnas are? Yeah. And so this got perverted also into some kind of like caste system. So a lot of times, especially those of us in the West, we don't know what it's like to have experienced any type of caste system. But in India, it's very prominent type of thing where those kind of miscreant type people took control of it and created a position of power to dominate other people. But when it's done properly, actually, it's meant to break out the different cycles of life so that in the different propensities of people, so that they can actually have they can do what is in their mentality to do. And then we have the 4 ashrams. So what are the 4 ashrams?
Brahmacharya,
The Vanaprastha, Sannyas. Yes, so this is also the different cycles of how the time of one's life should be spent. And as we understand this, in this age of Kali, we can actually try to stay on this schedule to some degree or another. And Prabhupada actually had a desire to establish Varnashram communities and farm communities, where to some degree or another, we were able to develop a place where devotees can live apart from society, from the greater society. He actually said that if we establish these farm communities, that when things become more difficult in society in general, that millions of people will join the farms. And so we can see that, like, because when we understand the Vedic approach to life, which is these ashrams and these varnas, and understanding the different cycles of life and fitting in with the propensity of where our mentality is, and that at the basis of society is agriculture and cows. Currently, our society is based around global economic kind of capitalist system based on paper money, fiat currency. Although this is it's a system that seems to be working kind of for some people, but it's understood that this is not the real basis of how society should be run. So for the ISKCON movement and Srila Prabhupada's movement, for us to, it's very difficult to try to establish this, but to keep it in our kind of vision, to establish these communities and to think about how we can develop these communities where devotees can live in some level of varnashram, and also with cows and agriculture as the basis for the society. Because as devotees, we're trying to establish a new way of life. For those of us who've grown up in the West and grown up in the materialistic culture, we're trying to break free from that. But it's also very difficult to break free from it when we have to stay like deeply, we're chanting Hare Krishna, we're purifying ourselves, but it's also, we're having to go back into this materialistic culture all the time and associate ourselves with those who are not aligned at all with the real purpose of life. So although it's been difficult as a movement for us to try, we've made so many attempts, and we're still making attempts, and we're making progress in it, in trying to develop these communities of devotee devotee societies. And I'm just making a mention of it because I know it's always something that's very inspiring to me to try to think this through and how to develop this and how we can actually live like devotees, because I personally have to live in this materialistic world and do, and I think if we could just find a way and continue to keep the conversation alive for us to keep developing these communities so that we can ultimately fulfill the purpose and goal of life and not have to be drawn back into the materialistic culture as a grihasta, especially. And, it was certainly, Srila Prabhupada's desire and wish to be able to establish these types of communities. So it's just something to consider in relation to the different categorizations of how we should be living and how it's described as devotees. And just couldn't look here. So, everything has cause and effect. And in this verse, we see that as the incarnation of Manu, the Lord became the descendant of the Manu dynasty and ruled over the miscreant kingly order, subduing them by his powerful wheel weapon. Undeterred in all circumstances, his rule was characterized by his glorious fame, which spread all over the three lokas and above them to the planetary systems of Satyaloka, the topmost in the universe. One other aspect here is that Krishna is coming as this incarnation of Manu, and he's ruling over the whole the planetary systems, and just another categorization. So there's like, from an understanding of the Vedic geographical breakdown, there's 3 planetary systems, and we in this Earth planet are in the middle. So we can go down or we can go up. And at the top, you have Satyaloka. And then when you go above that, you go above that into the spiritual domain. So there's a lot here. There's a lot to try to understand. These time frames are very long and very vast. And I've been trying to wrap my head around how this works. So we've got 420 Manus in a month of Brahma and 5,000 Manus in a year of Brahma. And so there's 504,000 Manus. And then you have all these different. So this is in like one universe. And then we have like multiple different universes. So again, like it seems like every verse I think it's just this section of the Bhagavatam, but like every time I seem to give a class, it comes to this thinking of like, there's no way we can conceive of this. Our mind is so like limited in relation to what it really is, but we try to accept the knowledge as it's given to us. We don't really necessarily need to go seeking out how it all works and figure it all out, because it's already described. And the Vedic understanding is that we take knowledge from the top. We don't like come up with our own knowledge and then, you know, present it and then do something better than what was already there. We take what was old and we accept it and we live in that format. So if anyone has any thoughts or questions, there's a lot of stuff in this verse that, you know, we could discuss, but I'm interested to hear if anyone has any realizations or reflections on this or anything that anyone would like to mention.
You said the first one is current one.
Yes.
That's where he is in material one, or
So from my understanding, he is in the material world. Yes. So like the Manus they are on a different kind of dimensional plane in the material world, though. Just like you have the demigods and the different. So the Manus are the administrators of the material world. So actually it's understood that Manu is, so it's like so it goes for like Brahma. So there's Krishna and then Brahma and then the Manus. So like they're like born. They're like, if we wanted to trace back our lineages, we are actually like, there's like our fathers, like our, our great grandfather, like all people are coming from this person. So it's material world.
Just as a point of reference, so Vaivashvata is the one.
Oh, okay, that's what. All right.
Vivishvan is his father.
Okay, got it.
So a little bit of Vivishvan
Yeah.
is the son of God, and then his son Vaivashvata.
Okay.
Kind of a.
I knew there was. Yeah, it was like.
The V's are.
Yeah.
Countries, so Vaivashvata is the current one. He's the seventh in the series.
Yeah, got it. So here's just a little. So like Prabhupada, I'll just read this. There was a question about this. So, Prabhupada said, Manu is the name of the son of Brahma, Vaivashvata Manu. Just like Narada is one of the sons, so there are so many sons. Brahma was the original living being. So he created so many sons and they created so many sons. In this way, the population of the whole world, of the whole universe has increased. So we're all coming from these Manus. And what's interesting too, so in this thing, so the present Manu under whom we are now living within this universe, he is the son of the sun god, Vivishvan. So he has got his different planet as the sun has got different planets. So his son Ikshvaku was given this earthly planet to rule over. And from that generation, Maharaj Ikshvaku, Lord Ramachandra appeared. So where he is, I mean, is he say? I think he's saying he's like he's on the sun planet, or he's coming from the sun planet, which is interesting because yeah, that's his father. But what's understood here is that there's like full on like living like a full civilization of like living entities on the sun. And every planet actually is described that there's not a single planet that's not full of life, intelligent life. So how is that? It's like so it seems like we can understand this like multi-dimensional planes of. So there's so many different ways that people try, even devotees that try to explain it, from the modern so-called ability to see the planets, and they say that there's, no life, and they look like barren wastelands. Some say, oh, well, they're not really looking at the planet, or others say, oh, they can't see it because they don't have the consciousness to see it. And I think Prabhupada, he said some kind of different things about it, but mostly it was like, if you don't have the eyes to see, you won't see. So, and you can't, yeah.
I think we can't conceive of it in the sense that we can only conceive of things that we can measure. So like we think in terms of our body and our body with this level of consciousness, and then on this planet, the human form is the highest level of consciousness. So, and we think, well, we could never exist in even if we get too close to the sun, we burn up. So obviously there can't be life on the sun. Right. Draw that kind of conclusion, like what could actually exist on the sun, but we don't, just because we have limited measurements that we measure by. There's subtle entities that we can't see at all, that are ghosts that don't have material bodies, right. Subtle bodies, that consist of mind and intelligence.
Yeah.
They don't get affected by like heat and cold and things like that. So there's, when I first heard that too, like there's beings that live within the sun. I mean, when you think about it, like if we never experienced, like if there's never like any water around, like the only water we ever came in contact with was from like water that we drank, but we never really knew the qualities of water, or like did any type of like exploration of the rivers and seas and oceans. And then we said, you know what, there's actually beings that like live underwater that don't breathe air. How could that be? Like, because we have no experience, but we have experience of it. We see fish, we study fish, so we can see, okay, this is how they do it. They have gills and they don't actually breathe oxygen. They have a whole different type of system. But we wouldn't believe it if we didn't actually have that experience of it. How can beings actually live in water and not in air? So we don't have that experience of like beings living in fire, but
right.
It wouldn't be too hard of a jump to.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so many things that we don't have the experience of, or we can't perceive, but they exist. Like certain insects and things they can see, like infrared. Like there's different. So there's only like there's like we can't see Wi-Fi, but it's there, right? I mean, it's definitely like moving through. There's things moving through the air, radio waves, and everyone accepts that, but we can't see it. I mean, and it's like outside. It's there, but it's like So it's our senses are limited. So things outside of that spectrum is difficult to accept, but we can see practically that there's certainly things that we can't see, we can't understand. And these time frames that are described are so unbelievably long. But any thoughts from the online participants? I don't see any hands raised.
I wanted to ask you this Saktavisha avatars are of supposedly two types, right? Like uh, Bhagavad Avesh Avatar and divinely empowered, which is Saktavesh avatars.
Yes.
And what is the relationship? Like Jiva Tattvas are only there in like empowered for Saktavesh, or I mean, I think
So
I have,
yeah, I think
or
there
sometimes it is often used for four Kumaras or even for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes. I am little bit needing more information on Saktavesh avatars and something like that, some little bit more understanding for me.
yeah, so I'll tell you what I see here. And so I think there are different categories of Shakti Avesh avatars. They are empowered incarnations. Like, and this is, I have a document here from ISKCON Desire Tree. So there's no limit to the number of Shakti Avesh incarnations. But some are mentioned in the Vedic literatures as examples. And they are of two kinds, direct and indirect. When the Lord himself expands, displaying a particular power of his opulences, he is known as Sakshat. So this is like, you know, when he's actually expanding himself. So when he empowers a living entity with some particular Shakti, power for some specific activity to represent him, that living entity is called indirect or Avesh incarnation. Like Prabhupada had said that Jesus Christ was a Shakti Avesh avatar. So just to kind of give you some example or you've got the indirect and the direct. You've got Krishna expanding himself, which I don't know if that would be, no, so Nrsimha would be like a Leela avatar. So a Shakti Avesh avatar, we've got the four Kumaras, Narada, Brahma, King Prithu, Parshuram, Veda Vyas. What each one is, I can't say for sure, but yes, you are correct to say that what is understood is they're indirect. And I'm sure it gets, if anyone has any else thing to say about it, but yeah, so there's the Lord himself expanding, and then there's living entities who I suppose would be Jiva Tattva, who are empowered, Shakti power empowered. So
You mentioned about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not Shakti.
I was gonna say, yeah, he's Krishna himself. Like he's not a Shakti of H avatar. Some might say that. People say a lot of things, especially with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Because they see him as a devotee.
Yeah,
And that
yeah, yeah. He's Krishna. He's the source of all incarnations. So the first part of it, yeah, two parts, and you could look more deeply into it. I'm certainly not very knowledgeable about it, but I can tell you what I see here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada, maybe Bhakti Vinod, all these were Saktavesh avatars, right?
From what I understand, yes. Shakti of H avatar. Yes. So they were empowered, incarnated. So they're empowered with the Shakti of the Lord. So the question is, can one become a Shakti of H avatar? In fact, I've had this question that I asked this, does it, I mean, ultimately, are they coming into this world as Shakti of H avatars? Or are they, somehow transmuting themselves to the point of becoming, and we can understand, even from Narada Muni, at one point he was the son of a maidservant, right? And so what happened? He took the food from the devotees, took the prasadam, and he, ultimately though it took in his next reincarnation, he had to be reborn, go through a whole cycle of devastation to become. So it's like you've got these Nitya Siddhas, right? They're like eternally liberated, but they're like Narada Muni is a Nitya Siddha. But it also says that at one point he got the prasadam from the devotee, so he wasn't always liberated. But it's like once you become liberated, then you become a Nitya Siddha, which is it's a little difficult to understand. But one can become eternally liberated. So in that sense, you would consider that one could become a Shakti Avesh avatar. Not an avatar, but you could become empowered.
So, I mean, this takes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because it is like he was direct incarnation, but he came in the form of devotee. And even if Lord comes, he is considered a Shaktavish avatar many times. Like it's not necessarily Jivas, even it is used for like Parshuram and other people who are Vishnu Tattvas.
But that would be like saying that Krishna himself was a Shakti Avesh avatar. But so I don't think it can really be. You could look more deeply into it, see what is said. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the same as he is Krishna. So he's not like coming as an empowered representative of any way. Even though, yeah, I mean, it is understood that there's the Lord himself expanding, displaying a particular power, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wasn't expanding. He is the source of the expansions. Just like Krishna, when he came, in the form 5,000 years ago, is Krishna. He's not expanding as a particular energy. He's the source of expansions.
I was reading just now this when the Lord himself comes, he is called Sakshat or a direct Saktavesh avatar. So this kind of I don't understand 100%. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, but at the same time, what about this statement? When Lord himself comes, he is called Sakshat or a direct Saktavesh avatar.
And the Lord himself expands, displaying a particular power. I'm going to put this. This is from ISKCON Desire Tree, and you can take a look. I think there's, you could break it down into, maybe we can look more deeply into the specific categorizations. It's a good question, but where does the line get drawn? But it's hard to say for sure. But from what I understand,
because there are so many categories, it becomes difficult to understand, especially when Jiva Tattvas and God himself are direct, that is direct and indirect kind of. Indirect when God empowers the Jivas for a specific purpose, and when Lord himself comes, like Parshuram and
yes. Well, maybe we just keep chanting Hare Krishna and we'll understand.
that's true.
You have to keep our mind is,
That's true.
we
Mental
come
speculation we cannot do.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Most of the time when Shakyavesh is referred to, that I've heard it referred to, it's a jiva being empowered to do, exceptional work. That is like, because even like if you're reading Prabhupada's purport where he says that to annihilate the miscreants and to give pleasure to the devotees. And he says in that purport, he says, to annihilate the miscreants, most of the time Krishna doesn't come, he usually sends his representative. But Krishna's main purpose is to give pleasure to the devotees, give satisfaction to the devotees. So he deputizes, and empowers Shakti, with Shakti, living entities that come into this world. So they're sent from the spiritual world down to execute the mission of the Lord. Most of the time, that's the context when he use like Shakti Avesh.
Right.
I can say that Lord Jesus Christ is Shakti Avesh.
Yeah.
And they say that, Bhaktivinoda Thakur prayed for an assistant to come and help him revitalize the movement of Lord Chaitanya. He prayed for a ray of Vishnu. So he said this, Lord Krishna gave him the son that was empowered, to carry that out.
Right. And they're the same and they're different, right? Because we wouldn't consider that Srila Prabhupada is Krishna, or that Bhakti Siddhanta is Krishna, but they're empowered by Krishna. But then there's also the Shakti Avesha avatars that says here that it is the Lord himself expanding. So it's the difficulty is in those different categorizations of Shakti Avesha avatar. Yeah. But yeah, I hear you. So, but mostly I think it seems that the majority of the Avesha incarnations or avatars are jivas who are empowered. Interesting conversation. So many interesting parts about this verse that we could go on and on about, trying to understand the different, even just if you break down each one of these types of avatars, it's the depth to each one. You could spend a lifetime trying to establish just a bit of understanding around how it works. And this is the opulence of Krishna, the ever expanding depth of Krishna's greatness. So no shortage of logical things to uncover, to tax our brains about, give us things to think about. So thank you everyone for coming this morning. Hare Krishna. Vancha Kalpa Drupyascha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patita Nan Pavani.
Pavani Bhyo Vaishnavi Bhyo Namo Namah.